Welcome to the channel, everyone. My name is Nick. For those that are new to the channel, hopefully by the end of this video, you do become a subscriber. So over the last couple days, we have been witnessing some significant growth happening around the XRP ledger. From Sentiment, they actually put out a great post, which was addressing how XRP has basically decoupled from the altcoin pack, surging another 14+% and breaching the $2.50 resistance level for the first time in 12 days. Wallets with at least 1 million XRP now hold 46.4 billion coins, as they have accumulated 6.5% more in just the last 2 months alone. Address activity has also exploded in the month of March, seeing approximately 6 times more unique wallets interacting on the network in March compared to earlier months. Guys, this is crazy. Now, we do have, it goes without saying that this price boost is also directly correlated with the SEC officially dropping its appeal against Ripple today. Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse has already deemed this a resounding victory for the entire crypto community, which this did happen on the 19th. But guys, I think that this is probably going to continue. I actually think that we see a lot more growth of the XRP ledger and the entire ecosystem around it over the next couple weeks, because again, this entire environment around crypto right now is kind of dark, but I am expecting this to significantly improve as well. There's been a lot going on around, specific things, like, for example, institutional grade adoption, the regulatory side of things that could very well change the trajectory of this space almost immediately. We definitely look at stablecoin adoption. We look at stablecoin legislation as well with, like, for example, the Genius Act. All of this can definitely be a catalyst around XRP, but mainly it's a big catalyst around crypto. Also, don't forget that, we started to see a few things happening around staking of the ETFs, which could definitely unlock a lot more growth around trading volume as well. I just feel like right now crypto might not seem like it's pretty bullish, but that's mainly because of the trade war and the tariff discussions. Once we start to see those things cooling off a bit, and once we start to see a little bit more of a flip on risk assets being the main driver, because even the dollar has been dropping significantly, I think that we're going to see that big shift happen almost immediately once everyone starts to really focus on risk on assets again. But also the next wave up, I think, is going to cause a significant amount of FOMO as well, because I think that that's when we start to break all-time highs across the board, including, of course, on altcoins. But outside of this, Brad Garlinghouse recently was at a summit. He was at the Blockworks summit, where we started to see a few discussions happening around what he's expecting happening this year. Now, we have here from Subjective Views, Brad Garlinghouse dropping little nuggets. Realize what's about to happen. Listen up. U.S. payment providers have not been as proactive around some of these technologies, and I think that might unlock now. Check it out.
Where do you think, what's your pulse on where people are going to start? Are they going to start with payments? Are they going to start with custody? Are they going to start with accepting stablecoins? What's your sense of
this? Well, I'll start by telling a quick story that I'll leave unnamed, but back to some of the regulatory, frankly, bullshit we've had to deal with. One of Ripple's payment customers actually debanked. We had deposits. So we're behind their firewall from an infrastructure point of view, and their compliance team decides they can't bank us. During this past administration, we got debanked, which you're kind of like, oh my God, like this has got to be, you got to be kidding me.
I remember it.
But look, I think that there will be different strokes for different folks. We are seeing some tier one banks lean into custody as because they have customers and they see the direction of tokenization of real world assets, the need to have a scalable, robust custody solution. For some customers, that is the entree point, and that's one of the reasons why we bought this company a couple of years ago, almost 2 years ago. Others, look, they are fundamentally more of a payments infrastructure play, right? I mean, certainly around remittances and some of the payment providers. And again, U.S. payment providers have not been as proactive around some of these technologies. And I think that may unlock now. So I know it's maybe an inadequate answer in some ways, and I'm not answering the question. I just think it's going to depend upon the type of bank. Some banks think of themselves more as around the custody side of the world. But I do think one of the fascinating things, and I think Sergey on stage earlier was referencing, stablecoin legislation, I think, is close. I have heard from some tier one banks that they may issue their own US dollar stablecoin. And hard for me to predict how that plays out.
Yeah.
But that also is a evidence that they're leaning in a way they haven't before. And again, if there's one thing I would emphasize to this audience, we are underestimating the tailwinds from the shift of the last 6 months. The largest economy in the world has been quite hostile to our industry and is now moving the other direction quickly. And I think we underestimate those tailwinds.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I completely agree with them, right? I think that we are underestimating what's about to happen, what's about to shift here. I mean, even more recently, Trump just advocated for US as Bitcoin superpower at the Digital Asset Summit as well, as you guys can see on the bottom right. The SEC has been very pro-crypto as of lately. Everything around crypto right now just feels as if it's shifting. And also, if we think about this Ripple case basically being finished, just go back a little bit to January, where Morgan Stanley and even Bank of America, they both said that the financial industry will jump into crypto if US regulators allow it. So now that this is basically clearing up in terms of the big storm cloud over crypto, I do go back to even my post from January where I did say, remember when Ripple confirmed that US banks will want to use XRP after the victory back in 2023? Like, now that this case is done, what does that mean? Because this was because of a partial victory, as CNBC said. Now that the victory is fully here and it's a 100% victory, what does that mean for US banks? And I even said that I think the floodgates are about to open. Monica Long recently said that the floodgates are going to open as well. I feel as if we are about to witness a seismic shift around Ripple and even around XRP. And also on Bloomberg, Ripple was recently spotlighted because of Brad Garlinghouse. Here's the message, right? We have a big message from Brad Garlinghouse. He's saying that the SEC has abandoned their appeal in the lawsuit against the company. And at this point, all we're fighting for is, do we want to fight to get the $125 million back? Check it out.
This has been a long battle. How much certainty does this provide? Is the entire case over?
So this provides a lot of certainty for Ripple, for frankly me personally, because the SEC had sued me. The SEC has abandoned their appeal. And so they filed suit in December of 2020. We won on the key parts of the case in the summer of 23. Judge Torres made a ruling that XRP in and of itself was not a security. That's almost a verbatim quote. The SEC filed an appeal about 8 months ago. And what they've now agreed is that they're going to drop that appeal. We still have a cross appeal pending. And so we go from being defendant really to plaintiff. So we now are in the driver's seat to determine how we want to proceed. Are you dropping it? We're going to see. It feels a lot better to be on the offense than the defense. 4 years, we spent over $150 million defending that case. Not just for Ripple, but for the whole industry. I think it was really important that this SEC, the Gensler SEC, was really trying to bully and continue lawfare, filing lawsuits and lawsuits and lawsuits against crypto companies. That's over now, and I think that's great for the U.S. crypto industry and, frankly, great for crypto at large.
I mean, to that end, if you're looking at a new SEC, why not drop the case at this point? Why not clear why not clear the water?
Well, that certainly is an option. I mean, again, it's clear the SEC has said, I think in retrospect, never would have brought this case. The judge did rule in certain instances back in 2015 and 2016, some XRP sales that we sold to accredited investors, to institutions, that those had constituted a security. And so there was a $125 million fine that's sitting in escrow. We wouldn't mind having that back. That's on the table. And I think there's some nuances to how this will play out. But it was important for us, for really the whole XRP community, for them to know that the case is over. For all intents and purposes, the case is over. The SEC is no longer pursuing this.
But to that end, to your point here, the court decision had ordered you to pay a $125 million civil penalty for exactly what you're talking about. Is that $125 million paid? Is what you're saying that's still up for dispute?
Yeah. Well, it's not in dispute. I mean, that's sitting in an escrow, and depending upon whether or not we decide to continue with our appeal, we could walk away and the whole thing would be done. On the other hand, when you have a case where there were no investor harm, no investors lost any money, you're kind of like, wait, why are we here? And it really goes back to Gary Gensler fighting a fight that was about power grab, that was about overreach of the bureaucracy to try to take a new industry. That what we're seeing now happen in Washington is smart legislation will come forward. You're seeing that happen with stablecoins in real time. And I think you'll have a market structure bill, is what it's described as, to provide clarity and rules for the SEC and CFTC.
We will look at the bigger picture.
Right.
We're going to have you for a little while this morning. But do you think that part of this means fighting it till the very end to make sure even that part of uncertainty around being sold to certain investors classifies as a security? Is that what you are fighting for ultimately at this point?
Well, I mean, at this point, all we're fighting for is, do we want to fight to get the $125 million back? Look, I'll be honest, would I have walked away from that before they appealed, before President Trump put Paul Atkins and Scott Bessent and David Sachs as critical, key, very smart leaders in this industry to bring this industry back on shore? I would have walked away. Now you look at that and you're like, this case in this SEC never would have been brought. And so where we find ourselves is, great, there's a clear legal victory to say XRP is not a security. That was good for the industry. But there's pieces of it that we think could be kind of cleaned up. And the question is, do we want to fight that fight, or can we come to an agreement with the SEC to drop everything?
The whole idea that this wouldn't have been brought under this SEC, have you had that specific discussion with Paul Atkins and with David Sachs?
Well, Paul Atkins hasn't yet been confirmed. He's a very knowledgeable guy about this industry and has been for a long time. But I've had conversations, I won't comment on specifics, with certainly, I think David Sachs would agree that this is a case that didn't make a lot of sense in the beginning. Again, there was no investor harm. This was about Gary Gensler waging a war against this industry.
Now, on top of that, we also have another sort of section here where he is talking about the IPO and that it is possible, but it isn't a huge priority. Just listen closely to that.
Is an IPO, frankly, in your future now? We talk so much about the potential for the XRP token to be wrapped in an ETF. That is a method of listing. Right. So is listing possible now for you for Ripple?
Well, it's certainly something that is possible. The United States SEC under Gensler was so hostile to this industry. I mean, ironically, they approved the S1 from Coinbase and then sued them for doing the things they said they were doing. So this SEC, fortunately, is going to be, I think, very constructive and positive for this industry. So I think that's available. And I think the company's at a stage where we could consider that. That being said, it isn't a huge priority. I think most companies are going public. Raising capital is something that is high on their radar. We have been in a very fortunate position to be able to grow the business organically. We're also, frankly, more proactive in looking at acquisitions. This is an industry that finally is going to be able to thrive in the United States, the largest economy in the world. And I think the industry is still underestimating the shift from the headwinds to the tailwinds. That's going to make a bigger difference than people think. And finally, the U.S. market is really unlocked.
So it sounds like what you're saying, acquisitions are almost more of a priority now than an IPO for you. So then what would you be looking for to buy, and how big are you willing to go?
Well, I'm not going to name names, but look, Ripple at its core is a blockchain infrastructure company. We sell our technologies to business, primarily financial institutions, and we'll look at other things that are blockchain infrastructure companies. I think there will be consolidation this year. There's a lot of excitement about some of the changes, and we will lean into that for sure.
Now, on top of that as well, we also have another update regarding RLUSD, which he's expecting RLUSD to be one of the top 5 stablecoins by the year end, and expects the stablecoin market to grow dramatically.
If you think about the next forefront of stablecoins, now that the U.S. is getting toward clarity, what's possible?
Well, again, I think we're underestimating how big that might get. Today that market's about $230 billion. So I think some smart people think that may go up 10x in the next 5 years. I think that's probably right. I mean, the two leading players in Tether as well as USDC are both, I think, poised to do well in that market. Ripple launched our own stablecoin at the end of last year. That's already ahead of our own internal forecasts in terms of where we are at this point in the year. Still, we're small, but the goal is by the end of the year for RLUSD, Ripple stablecoin, to be one of the top 5 in the market by the end of the year. And I think the whole market's going to grow dramatically over this year.
So what does it take you to get there? Who are you pairing up with? Are you creating some financial partnerships in order to make RLUSD more of a household name?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even today we had more listings go live for RLUSD on some global crypto exchanges. Anytime you do something new, it takes a minute for that kind of, if the pun of the ripple effect of seeing how that plays out. And so we're seeing that happen in real time. So I'm really pleased. And again, as I said, we're ahead of our Q1 forecasts of where we expected to be. So we feel really good about that progress.
Now, last but not least, he has one more message, which is the fact that he is confident XRP will be added to the White House digital asset stockpile and expects to see an XRP ETF this year.
Why do you think XRP wasn't specifically named in the executive order for the digital asset stockpile?
Well, so XRP was named by the president on Truth Social. He posted something saying that there should be other tokens, that there's going to be a Bitcoin strategic reserve and then a crypto stockpile that would include things like XRP.
But days later, the executive order didn't include it. Why was that?
I don't know what specifically was in the executive order. My understanding is there's going to be a Bitcoin strategic reserve. There'll be a crypto stockpile representing other cryptos. And I would expect that will include XRP. Look, at the end of the day, I think the stark contrast is in the Biden administration, we couldn't get a meeting with people at the White House. Now we're welcomed into the White House. And that's just a massive change. I think we want this industry to thrive in the United States. We don't want to push it offshore where you have fewer regulations.
I think the reason I keep pushing you too is because I think now it's widely accepted that this is a pro-crypto administration. But the details, that is what's causing an overhang, the uncertainty of the details. So to the extent you have confidence, right, about XRP being in that stockpile or otherwise getting more support for an ETF, for example, where does that confidence come from and what kind of timeline do you see it happening on?
So I have immense confidence on the ETF. I think there's 11 different filings pending with the SEC to launch ETFs from everybody from Bitwise to Franklin Templeton and a whole bunch of people in between. I think those will be live in the second half of this year. We have seen even outside the United States, you have live ETPs. And at a time when a lot of outflows are exiting some of the crypto ETFs, you're seeing inflows into XRP. And I think that's because you had this false negative pressure from the SEC, this kind of, an exogenous hand holding things down that's now being released. And that's great for the market. That's great for builders within the XRP ecosystem globally.
One more on the stockpile.
Yeah.
How much XRP would be in it? Where does it come from?
Well, my understanding of what I read about I think there are some questions and that the devil may be in the details as Treasury implements some of this.
Absolutely in the details.
But my understanding is that the stockpile will be represented by seized other cryptos other than Bitcoin that then will be in that stockpile. So to the extent that various law enforcement agencies have seized cryptos, which would include XRP, that those would go into the stockpile in addition to the Bitcoin strategic reserve. That's my understanding.
So outside of that, as we really think about what's happening right now around Ripple and around XRP outside of the case, now that this case is done, I do think that we are going to see a lot of significant moves being made around Ripple, around XRP, but mainly we're going to start to see a big shift around the US market for crypto, especially around XRP because of how pro-innovation this entire admin is. We now have a pro-crypto SEC, Congress. It just kind of feels like we are moving into a completely different market. It almost kind of, I don't want to say that we're moving into a utility-driven market because we're not there yet. But I do think that we are about to witness, XRP front and center, Ripple expanding rapidly, Ripple and XRP becoming more embedded within the US system. And I think that it all really kind of starts with this SEC case. So I think that this is now one of the biggest dominoes falling. And from this point on, we're going to start to see a lot more updates happening, especially regarding those big players like the big banks, because nothing is now holding XRP back. Nothing's holding Ripple back. And I'm very excited to see what happens going forward. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.